Which genre of game do you feel like takes more hand-eye coordination? Fighting games or shooters? This is is our lovely co-host, Mr. Gaming, have kind of led us into this conversation. So, it's good that he's going first to set the tone for this. But, this is definitely a nice topic. So we can just go ahead and get into it. Devin, which one do you feel like takes more hand-eye coordination? Go ahead and set the tone and get us
Um,
canceled.
um, Actually, I think RPGs require more hand-eye coordination. No, I'm just playing. Um, I mean, this is actually something I thought about a long time because, like, it depends. Because I think I would say when it comes to execution and hand-eye coordination in gaming, fighting games, shooting games, and probably like MOBAs and RTSs, um, those are probably like the top three I would say out of most genres. So, and I guess you could kind of add in like the rhythm games like Guitar Hero and stuff. So those be like four. But I feel like, of course, fighting games and shooting games are like the more prevalent. I would say, especially like with console and stuff. Um, so the reason why I kind of asked this question is because like Fortnite is against a shooting game, right? But man, it's like it's the one shooting game where I felt like it added such an extra level of depth with the building. Like it's not like you don't just have you're not just I have to have my good aim and twitch reflexes to like shoot people. Shotgun was a big thing in Fortnite. You had to really know how to aim with the hip fire up close. But not only that, but they add building on top of it. So it's like you have to literally switch from fighting to building, like mid battle. Not like, oh well, we shot, now the fighting is over, now we're gonna build. No, mid match, you're editing all that stuff. Now fighting games, you have like the rhythm and timing. Some games have hard execution, one frame links, and all this different type of stuff. Um, Even a character's hitbox or hurtbox can change like, the way a combo works on them. Um, some combos just don't work on certain characters, so you have to keep in mind, oh well, I can't do this hard combo because it doesn't work on this character. You got infinites, the which therefore is it starts to tap into like your muscle memory, like remembering sequences just without even really having to think about it. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and say fighting games. And I think that's the reason why I'm gonna say fighting games over shooting games, even though I think shooting games do have a lot going on, especially these newer shooting games because of the muscle memory aspect. You have to get to the point where like, being able to perform some combo or infinite or whatever it is, but like also being able to put it in your database where you can do it with muscle memory without even really having to think about it. The shooting games have the same thing, but I don't think shooting games have as much repetition as like fighting games do because that's an added element to it. I think probably again Fortnite probably be the game that I would say that has the most repetition because you have to remember how to build things like in a certain sequence, like certain things that are just like that. And that's the reason why I've said on this podcast before, on the show before, that I feel like Fortnite is the closest shooting game that resembles a fighting game because of that building element. There are certain things in Fortnite that are similar to like combos, like 90s, doing 90s, just going up. Like it's a set way to do them. Like certain ways to do them. It's like basic B&Bs, like bread and butter combos. So you don't really have things like that necessarily in like COD, I would say. They may be similar, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and give that nudge to fighting games just because the execution, the hand-eye coordination, the memory, the repetition. They say a lot of times that people that are good at music, they're good at fighting games, which I do believe. A lot of times you do see kind of correlation to that. And just being able to remember those inputs, also remembering, what characters these inputs, certain inputs don't work on, and then also the memorization, just getting to the point where I can do infinite or whatever without even having to think about it. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and give it to fighting games. And also it's another element because when you look at the screen, some people say pay attention to like your character. Some people say look at your opponent's character. So that's also another added dynamic. And a lot of times I find myself just looking at some people say look at the middle of the screen. So it's like sometimes you can look at the middle of the screen and you have to like be able to react like, okay, where is the person going to be standing? So it's a whole nother level of hand-eye coordination and just like muscle memory when it comes to fighting games. So I'm how to give it to fighting games, even though I think shooters are still they require some practice for sure.
I think in my opinion, I would say that fighting games would definitely require more than shooting games. Uh, Mostly because like, and I'm just saying this as an example. I think like and I've kind of thought this for a while, but when you're talking about like an FPS shooter, in most cases you're in a situation where it's a 5v5 situation. So there's always these other like random elements running around. You know, there's people on your team, there's people on the other team, there's explosive barrels in some areas, you know, there's kill streaks, what have you. And there's like all these random elements going on in the fight all the time. And of course, you got to worry about 5 or 6 other people on the opposite team, as opposed to like a fighting game where you're mostly focusing on one person. Like there's just like you two are zeroed in, keyed in on each other. So the only person that they ever have to focus on in any given fight, unless maybe you're like Armika or something, you know, but like most of the time, the only opponent they have to focus on is you. They only got to focus on you, and then of course, from Marvel vs. Capcom, you have extra characters, but there's only one opponent that you ever have to worry about at any given time. So it's like a constant, like instead of having to like you don't like you're never like counting on somebody to come in and save you. You know what I mean? Like there's got like an act of God, like one of your friends runs around the corner and saves you or something like that. It's all about like you have to focus on you using your skill at the time in order to do it. And like, of course, you know, you got to be on point with those executions, man. And you got to be able to adapt to what's going on like really quickly. Like oftentimes, at least as far as I've seen, like in shooting in a lot of FPSs, like one of my buddies was saying this, and he was saying that a lot of people play using controller, and the reason they play using controller, uh, aim assist, so you don't have to work as hard to like aim to shoot people. And I mean, I mean, there are auto combos, but they don't help you like necessarily. I mean, there's like a little bit of vacuum in some combos on like Dragon Ball Z in a couple places, but in most games, like there's not really there's not really auto combos. You know what I mean? And most of the time, it's not a good idea to use auto combos. And you know what I mean? Most of the time, it's a pretty good idea, like to use like what you call it, like aim assist, because it just makes it easier to kill people. And in fighting games, though, you don't really have anything like that. Not like in Soul Calibur or Tekken or something like that. It all comes down to you being able to execute. You being having the right rhythm. You know, knowing when somebody's going to do something, being able to react when they're doing it. To like you got to guard impact, you got to parry a low in Tekken, and then after you parry the low, you got to be able to follow up. Or there were like if you can't follow up after you've parried a low in Tekken, there was almost no point in you doing it in the first place. Like that was a waste of a movement, a waste of brain power. So yeah, I would say that like in terms of hand-eye coordination, I would say fighting games are pretty high up there because there's just so much going on. You only have one person to focus on, but they're focusing on you, and you realize that that person is focusing on you. So it's a battle of reflexes all the time, and there's not a whole lot of like outside influence or outside interference in terms of like the actual game. It's just you and them, and yeah, man, you just got to be on point because, like I said, there is no aim assist. If you whiff that move, like their game isn't going to like correct for you most of the time. It's like, you whiff the move, you know what happens now, don't you? So, yeah, man, fighting games.
Um, First off, when I think of hand-eye coordination, I always think of driving. Driving is a great example of hand-eye coordination. You have your eyes on the road, and your hands have to lead you where you see that your eyes are telling you that you need to be led. So that's a perfect example of hand-eye coordination. You're coming into a curve, you see the curve, your eyes see the destination that you need to go to, and your hands carry you into that direction or into that destination. So when I think of something like that, which type of game or genre of game do I feel like um practices those skills the most? I think I'd have to say shooting games. I think there's a difference between reflexes and hand-eye coordination. I think there's fighting games definitely are more of a mental game, in my opinion. It's just you and a person, one on one, mono a mono, and you guys need to, basically know what you need to do, but at the same time, guess and react to what the other person has to do. So it's definitely more of a chess game, a mind game, more of like it's more of a mentally taxing game. Because it's so much stuff that footsies, neutrals, all these other things. You have to know each matchup. In fighting and shooting games, not each character has like different things they can do. You have like different guns that do different things. You have different weapons that do different things. You have different perks that do different things. But it's not so much like fighting games. Like each character has so many different things they can do, and you have to know these matchups and how they relate to who you're playing with and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot more mental gymnastics that go into fighting games. But just hand-eye coordination, I really think that's more so shooting games. Like if I'm walking out of somewhere and in the corner of my eye, I see over here, I'm all out the mic. In the corner of my eye, I see somebody over here is in the window. Like my hands have to lead me there where my eye saw that I needed to go very, very fast to hurry up and get to that person who's probably going to get to me. When I think of scenarios in like Call of Duty where you're running and then next thing you know, you see somebody coming around the corner, you hop, hurry up, throw a grenade down, crouch down, go back to where you saw they were and start shooting. I feel like that's a lot more hand-eye coordination than just, a fighting game. It's so, and I could say in 3D games, there's probably a lot more hand-eye coordination because there's different dimensions and stuff you have to, figure in than just a 2D, back, forth, up, down. But just all in all, I'd have to say shooting games. There's so many scenarios that can come up in shooting games. I mean, there are legit things that happen in shooting games to where you have to literally do hand-eye coordination. You could be guiding a missile. That's hand-eye coordination. You know, you could be driving a tank or some type of vehicle. That's hand-eye coordination. Just all throughout the game. So I'd really have to say shooting games. That'd be my answer. I hope that, and if anybody in the comments just really thinks like I'm wrong on it, please let me know. Give me your opinion and stuff like that. We have people in the comments who really give like great opinions on things like this, so I can't wait to hear the comments. But let us know. But I really think it'd be shooting games that give you a lot of hand-eye coordination more than fighting games. But like I said, fighting games definitely is more of like a mental challenge, more mental games that come into play than shooting games. But just hand-eye coordination, I think that's shooting games. So anybody else have anything to add?